Hello and welcome. Okay, first question in the comments today. Oh, by the way, I think certainly it seems the email has restored itself as I expected. These problems usually resolve themselves. And the 4 emails that I could not reply to were very much an isolated phenomena. I hopefully replied to those people during these sessions, albeit I never heard from them again. And although there were no apparent similarities, and the content of those emails were good questions, it could be that they were some form of very sophisticated spam or something of that nature. I've been informed. But it would surprise me because of the nature of the questions. Anyway, that aside, you kindly sent many emails to test, and I've responded. It's given me the opportunity to respond with metta, and it all seems okay for now. But in the comments, which hopefully I don't miss any of those, I may sometimes, if you put a comment and then you remove it, miss it. But then I guess you've removed it for that reason. You don't want it to be responded to. But they seem to be quite reliable, for now anyway. In the comments, this question, can monks wear watches? It then says, I've seen the Dalai Lama wears a Rolex. So His Holiness the Dalai Lama, I'm pretty sure, does not wear a watch and does not wear a valuable or expensive watch. He might wear a mala. It is an exception in some traditions that they can wear these mala beads, as is hanging around my shrine behind me. In our tradition, we take that precept of not wearing jewellery or adornments strictly, so we don't even wear malas, either on our wrists or around our necks. But as in the Tibetan tradition, they use them as a tool, equipment for their meditation and recitations. To keep them handy, they will triple bind them round their wrist, not wear them round their neck like a necklace. But he doesn't wear a watch, to my knowledge, and I'm pretty sure of that, because monks don't wear jewellery. It's one of the precepts. It's seen as a personal item and an adornment. If you're living in a community, you're a monk and you're living in a community, you may have a little alarm clock to use to see the time. Or maybe if you have responsibilities, you're the guest monk, or you're the monk who has to ring the bell at a specific time, you might have a little cheap watch which you could just use, rather than put it on your wrist, put it around your belt. I've seen that often done. For myself, I don't need a watch. I can check the time on the phone when necessary, which is rare, because my day is formed around the rising of the sun and the setting of the sun. In this part of the world, that doesn't change throughout the year by very much, about 10-15 minutes, because we're quite close to the equator. So it's 12 hours daylight, 12 hours night. Dawn is the beginning of a monk's day. This is just as you can see, the rule behind this in the Vinaya is just as you can see the lines on the palm of your hand with the naked eye, unassisted by any lights, you see. That is sufficient light for us to say it's approaching sunrise and dawn. That's usually at around 5:30. Now, I've been up for a while then, and I commence my morning chanting with you, live morning chanting, blessings and short meditation at 6 a.m. So I check the time then on the phone as I'm setting it up for that purpose. After that, my day follows just its usual plan, and I don't think I ever really have cause to check the time unless I have an appointment to go somewhere, which is quite rare also. So watches aren't part of our requisites, what we're allowed to have as personal items. In fact, what we're allowed, or what we have as personal items, officially are the 8 requisites. 8. 3 robes, the lower robe, upper robe and an outer robe there. Our bowl, so that's 4. Our pindapata, our alms bowl. A belt, a needle and cotton for necessary repairs. Any holes or damage in our robes must be repaired before the next day. And as our day begins at dawn, every time, we always associate the beginning of a monk's day with dawn. So it must be repaired, that hole, before dawn the following day. So you must either struggle at night time with a candle, sewing a hole. If it's bigger than the head of a matchstick is the sort of measurement we use. It's one of our rules. To keep a stitch in time saves 9. To keep our robes, our preciously cared for and looked after personal items, which I'm just going through. So 3 robes, lower, upper, outer. Bowl is 4. A belt, needle and cotton, water filter. I always forget one of them. Oh, and razor for this, shaving our heads. So that's our 8 requisites. Anything else over and above that, even shoes actually, phones or computers, and people have all sorts of other items, are merely things we are using officially, because we can't actually own things. We're not able to buy things. People can give us things for our convenience and use, but from my point of view, I'm not so much now, I hope to stay here, but I've been traveling from place to place. Even when I've stayed in one country, I've been going from different, moving around all the time. So it's very practical just to be able to put everything I own in the world in my bowl. It's not there today, as I keep referring to it, my pindapata. It's outside after we wash that bowl, caring again for it. When you have very few things, you look after them really well. This is very important because they've been given to us. All donations we receive, whether it's financial support or these main requisites, are gratefully received and then very well cared for. Because we have so little in the world, we have a big responsibility to look after that which is given to us, because it's not easily replaced, of course. So that bowl, we let it dry out in the sun to stop it getting, discoloured or rusty or damaged. The sun is a great purifier of that, although there's not much of that around today. So yeah, watches don't come into it, I'm afraid. There we go. It's not afraid. I mean, it's good. We don't need to keep looking at the time. Okay. Yeah, so when I acquire things like, a couple of little plastic stools to put things on here or for convenience of others visiting, anything I'm using here, if I have a new broom, something like that, or a fan, then when I move on, if I leave, then I just leave all that here for the next occupant. Usually in my case, that's another monk to follow you, so it's always useful for them also. But we don't cart all this stuff around, which means it's very easy for us to pick up and move and go at a moment's notice. In fact, also in the Vinaya, one of our rules is that we must have within reaching distance, so at arm's length, at night time, that 3rd outer robe. This is called a sangati. We rarely wear it other than on formal occasions over our shoulder, but it's a double thickness version of this. And our pindapata must be within arm's reach, so that whatever happens in the night, we can just pick up and go if necessary. And the next day, we leave everything in as good or preferably better condition than we found it. And we're able to keep moving that way if it's necessary, or if we want to save ourselves getting attached to a location, an environment, or a property, a place, a building that we may be staying in. Now, I've been doing that for many years now, and now I'm trying to stay put. I've been looking for somewhere where I can stay put to really develop my practice as I originally intended to, without the upheaval, however easy it is, the upheaval of moving but then resettling, getting to know people, new people to support you. I have a nice community of lay supporters in this village and in the nearby town who feed me every day, provide this accommodation, and look after those day-to-day necessities and requirements should I require anything. But I need very little. I need less looking after really than the cat or a dog, frankly. I don't need walking, very little food, just once a day, and I don't keep going woof woof or meow meow when I don't get my way. I try to be invisible and unnoticeable, other than on Pindapata in the morning when we try to be noticed. But again, we don't speak, we don't ask, we don't request. So that's just a bit about monks' existence in this way. I mean, of course, if you live in a community, it's slightly different. You might need to have extra robes and things because you're always meeting people and having functions and things to entertain the lay folks. You could be also doing jobs and many duties within the monastery itself. The bigger the community, well, any more than one person requires more looking after than individuals. I require very little looking after, and my duties are very minimal. A little sweeping in the morning, maybe a little sweeping in the afternoon to keep the leaves at bay, other than cleaning my bowl and cleaning these 8 requisites, these robes and my bowl. There's nothing much more to do for me here. Okay, I feel unhappy and just upset and negative. May your words of wisdom reach me something. So I always say, be happy and stay well. If we're happy, our bodies stay well. But also, you can try and keep your body well, eating well, good exercise, and that will also have the corresponding reverse effect of helping your mind states improve. You see, our bodies and our thinking brains are very good places, part of the khandhas, as I've been talking about at some length recently, Nama Rupa, to really focus our attention on and see what's going on there. So you'll notice that when mental emotions arise, like sadness, the body has corresponding physical feelings. And when you have physical feelings like pain, the mind has corresponding mental emotions. So in that case, disliking. Or in the case of some pleasure, liking. In the case of sadness in the body may feel a little lazy and weak and not motivated mentally to get up and do much. So often going for a brisk walk in the park nearby, if you live in a town, or through the town even, a busy town, can be helpful. Not by way of distraction, but to bring your senses, your conscious awareness back into the body and away from the mind for a moment by exercising, doing some physical exertion. This could help you. Watch your diet, have some exercise, get enough sleep. Then really it's the practice of keeping moral virtue. If you're keeping the 5 precepts and you're practicing meditation every day for at least an hour in the morning and an hour in the evening, you will soon find that sadness will reduce. It will go away. You'll be developing conditions, mental conditions of calmness, peace, and start to see clearly the cause of your suffering, the cause of what is making you sad. It is either you not having something you want or you having something that you don't want. When you can see through that, to see the very, it is a translucent, it is always very transparent, but it's, so we don't notice it. But when you can identify it, you'll see how transient it is, how fickle it is, how it will just arise, the causes of this condition, and soon pass away. So this is what you should be bringing your attention to. Firstly, your practice, sila, moral virtue, meditation, samadhi, and panya, developing wholesome mind states, reducing unwholesome mind states. So guarding these sense doors, guarding what you're looking at, what you're listening to, what you're smelling, tasting, touching, and what you're thinking about. These sense windows are the stimuli for your emotions, and therefore ultimately, as your mind is the forerunner of all things, how your body will feel. So devote your time directedly and purposefully in doing good, helping others, Knowing also that other people will also have feelings of sadness just as you. And many of them have reasons for that could be, I'm not belittling the cause of your sadness, but there's always someone worse off than you. Now give them some consideration, but also have compassion for yourself. Treat yourself kindly, treat yourself well, and you will soon come through this phase of suffering that you're going through. Dissatisfaction, that is all it is. And what knows you're unhappy, that isn't unhappy. So see the cheetah, it knows, and then you can let go of the unhappiness you're experiencing. I mentioned compartmentalization, so I was looking for the question. I was hoping I could expand upon this in your talks, just a little bit. Well, compartmentalization, I can't remember what context I might have used that word, but it's certainly in my dictionary, that and tendency to complication comes up when I speak, but something completely different, unrelated, those two phrases. But compartmentalization, when I'm referring to that, is usually in relation to the khandhas, actually. So when we're noticing, when we're sad, well, compartmentalization, in my experience, was such that I used to, living in the monastery, which was, in excess of 100 monks, all living together, with many lay people coming to many functions and ceremonies continuously. Although it was very harmonious and peaceful and quiet, more so than even here. I mean, even though it was in the middle of a city, living with 100 monks, you could always find peace and tranquility, actual quiet, and it just achieved something, that kind of atmosphere within this crucible of activity. It was calm. And it is a very good example of Buddhism and the Vinaya. Monks all living together in accordance with the Vinaya, our set of rules, harmoniously together. However, my own preference is for solitude and quiet and this kind of practice, and the ceremonies, the chanting, the many visitors could occasionally bother me, and would show my teachers there, would notice that I had a disliking to this. And they would say to me, Dharma Rakito, Dharma Rakita, whatever they called me, Nama Rupa. This is just the thinking brain and the body experiencing this. What knows, this is the cheetah, as I've been talking about in the khandhas, is separate. That's my aspect, my understanding and thinking and use in this context, in Buddhist terms, of compartmentalization. Knowing that what is going on externally, you're allowing in internally, and you're breaking down the compartmentalization by misunderstanding. Now, I might have also been referring to your day. If you have a job that requires a lot of thought, a lot of thinking, a lot of interaction, you can still practice mindfulness, but it is not a time to try and develop samadhi. So you would compartmentalize in that sense that now when I get home, I put everything down, I let go of the day, I let go of tomorrow, and I sit now, it's time, this is my compartment where I compartmentalize my time for meditation practice only. So I might have been referring to it in that sense. But it's not really Buddhist terminology, so don't think of it as something, it slipped in from my olden days. I mean, I could go into a whole talk on compartmentalization in business, but it would be entirely inappropriate and irrelevant to what I talk about on this channel. All right, okay. Thanks for talking about sankharas. What's this? This is a... How long is this? Oh, it's not long. Thanks for talking about sankharas. I had the good fortune to attend Amaravati. So this is one of the Thai forest Buddhist monasteries in the Ajahn Chah group back in my home country, UK, England, where I've also visited, although it wasn't my nearest, so it wasn't my local monastery. a couple of weeks ago to listen to Longpo Sumedho. So sadhu, sadhu, sadhu anumodana. He's a very senior, the most senior in that particular tradition, Western monk, and one of the first Western monks to have ordained in that tradition, whom I've seen at Amaravati, and I'm very familiar with his talks. You listened to some of his talks about sankharas, and you say you didn't fully understand at the time, but you do now, so that's good. I'm trying to find the question. You're saying some very nice things, complimentary there about Ajahn Sumedho and Amaravati, and even a little bit about me there. Also, all right, okay, there are two questions here, if I could find them. Is it okay to be attached to Dharma talks? Yeah, I mean, attachment is not attachment. Wanting to expand your knowledge of the Dharma is chanda. It's wholesome desire. But of course, one must, with mindfulness, look at this. If you're walking around continually with something in your headphones, with your headphones on or AirPods in, or in the background with just some sound to distract you, and you're not listening to the Dharma, then this isn't really listening to Dharma talks. It's okay to do that also if it's the only opportunity you to have. So it's a case of using mindfulness, or dare I say it, common sense. You know, if you're just playing it as background sounds because you like the sound of someone's voice, then you're just playing it like music or some background distraction, or to drown out some other sound you don't like. That isn't really a wholesome desire. That's more like tanha. So if you had an absence of the ability, you couldn't listen to it, you'd suffer because you'd have a craving for it. But if you're really wanting to listen to Dharma for the content, which I'm sure you are here, as what you describe, then that's perfectly acceptable. Tanha is like craving or thirst, desire, unwholesome desire. Chanda is like the desire to offer alms, give dana. It's the desire to listen to the Dharma and hear the teachings of the Buddha. It's the desire to practice meditation or to practice any devotional practices one might have when visiting temples and such like. This is chanda. Why don't the Sangha practice yoga? Because it's not necessary. That's from a different. Why don't we lift weights? Why don't we run on treadmills? Why don't we go to the gym? Same question. If you're talking about the spiritual side of yoga, because it's an entirely different practice, the yoga we practice is that of staying still for a good period of time in meditation, which isn't described as yoga, although it does form part of some yoga traditions and practices. I'm 57, I live on the floor, I'm always getting up and down. To do anything I have to stand up and then get down again. I'm not just sliding from sofa to sofa with a remote control to do everything for me, and lots of assistance in that respect. So the nature of our existence is keeping us fit, and there's no requirement to do any other exercise. I also walk 2 or 3 miles every day, every morning on Pindapata. Used to be twice that, but I've cut it down to half because it was a little bit too much in these hot conditions. But we need to keep rather fit anyway, so that's why the Sangha has no need, there's no room for it, there's no place for it in the practice. Did the Lord Buddha not talk about yoga in the suttas? No, he didn't, no. While practicing anapana, so what you mean by that is anapanasati, which is mindfulness of the breath, yeah? My body do involuntary movements, how to deal with them. So recognize them and know that your body is making involuntary movements. It is just your body. And your vijnana, consciousness of your thinking mind, is noticing this. And you are, as a result of that perception, recognizing these movements, sanya. Yes, so I'm reminding you of these khandhas again here, and reminding you of nama rupa. These voluntary, involuntary movements are nama rupa. Partly mind calls, but it seems that they're just happening in your body as you're trying to meditate. It means you're not practicing mindfulness of the breath. You're trying to do anapana, as you put it. Anapanasati is just mindfulness of the breath. Watching breathing in, watching breathing out. Even practicing shows or sounds and can be considered as unnatural. Breathing is very natural, so it's very easy to just observe. This is all we're doing. As soon as your mindfulness moves away from the breath, you're going to notice other phenomena, whether it's thinking or physical bodily movement, as in your case. If you keep your mind on the breath, observing breathing in and observing breathing out, is it short, is it long, is it deep, is it shallow, is it subtle, is it coarse, you will just be observing the breath, mindfulness of the breath. What your body is doing, if it's jumping around the room, it doesn't matter. Continue to observe the breath. You may levitate 3 feet off the ground. It doesn't matter. It's just physical phenomena. As with your mind, whatever goes on in your mind, come back to the breath. This is the purpose of anapanasati, mindfulness of the breath meditation, or using the breath as a meditation object. How to deal with it? It'll go away of its own cause. Your body will get tired of jumping around if that's what it's doing. Don't think about it. Let it do whatever it needs to do. And come back to observing the breath only. Okay? So I wonder what's wrong with this dog. It sounds in distress, doesn't it? But there is someone there, so, you know, that's probably what I'll have to go and just check, because I'm concerned it's got its neck caught up.